All right, it's 1 minute after the hour, and I see we have a bunch of people join now, so we will go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Successful Atlassian Cloud Migration webinar hosted by XPM. My name is David Mitchell, and I'm a consultant at XPM, solution architect, and an Atlassian certified professional. Let's get started with some announcements. One of the things to keep in mind as we go through the webinar today is we have a variety of resources out on the web to provide to you that provide a lot of additional information above and beyond what we're going to talk about here today. We used to give those out piecemeal throughout the webinar, but because we don't want you to have to deal with copying and pasting all the way through, we're just going to give those all to you in bulk at the end in chat. So when the webinar is over, we'll put that out in chat, and we'll leave the webinar open for a few minutes for you to have an opportunity to grab those. So be sure and grab that. That'll be very valuable for your research. Another announcement is be sure and post your questions if you have any questions to the Q&A chat. We do want to we would love to answer your questions if you have some. And also, you don't necessarily, feel free to post your questions throughout the webinar. You don't necessarily have to wait until the end. I will not be seeing them and answering them throughout the webinar, but you know, you can put it out there whenever you want to. You don't have to wait until the end. Okay. One cool announcement that we have today is, this is a new announcement. It's not on the slide. We are giving away today a pair of free AirPods Pro. I don't know if y'all can see this. I'm told this is the latest version. So our producer, Elizabeth, who is in the control room, is going to draw a name from the attendees today, and we'll give this away at the end. So stick around for that. Is there any other announcements? Okay, I don't believe so. All right, we'll dive right in. So successful cloud migration. What we're talking about here today are the steps in the sequence of steps in the planning that you have to do to make your migration successful, which obviously everybody wants a successful migration, right? This is the roadmap, and this is actually a roadmap that is provided by Atlassian, and it also forms the outline of our discussion today. As we look at this here, I'll just comment briefly about these. At the beginning, you've got assess, plan, and prep, and those phases are going to tend to be lengthier. Assessment will take a while, planning will take a while, preparation will take a while. Testing can hopefully be not too long, assuming the testing goes well. The migration is relatively quick, you know, when you do it over a weekend, over an evening, and then launching is pretty quick as well. So correspondingly, we will spend a lot of time today talking about assessing and planning and prepping, probably, you know, more so but we'll cover each one of these phases. All right, let's talk about why anyone would want to migrate to cloud. Why are we migrating to cloud? Why are we wanting to do that? A lot of people are wanting to migrate to cloud right now. Why? And a lot of you probably know the answer to this question already. Atlassian has announced the end of life for their server product, and that actual final cutoff is February of 2024, after which there won't be any more updates or support for that. So that's driving a lot of companies to look into migrating to corresponding cloud versions of their products or data center. Another thing in terms of cloud specifically are the cloud features. The cloud products of Jira and Confluence are just more feature rich than server and more feature rich than data center as well. Atlassian does add, they are adding features to data center, but cloud is their priority and gets their love in terms of adding new features. And cloud has a lot of features, a pretty rich feature set over server. So when people move from server to cloud, they really like all the new features that they have available. In the resource library that we provide to you at the end, we're going to provide you some information on that announcement and a link to the roadmap. All right, in terms of Atlassian products that you have, what can I migrate to cloud? Not everything you can migrate to cloud. All of these products here circled in green, Jira, Jira Software, Jira Core, Service Desk, Bitbucket, and Confluence, all have cloud versions of those same products that you can migrate to. These items here circled in blue, Crowd and Bamboo, there are not cloud versions of those, but there are corresponding cloud products that take the place of those. So for example, with Crowd, if you're using Crowd for user management in cloud, the replacement for that is Atlassian Access. And Bamboo, if you're using Bamboo in the cloud, you would use Bitbucket pipelines to fill in the role that Bamboo would be doing for you if you're using that. Okay, let's look at some differences between cloud and data center, because when companies are migrating off of server, they're saying, okay, where should we go? Should we go to cloud? Should we go to data center? Because those are the two options. And the focus of our webinar today is about cloud, but we're going to briefly talk through this decision process because it's a question that everybody's going to ask. Before I get into the details, I'll just tell you that what this slide illustrates is that 95% of the time, cloud is going to meet your needs. If there are companies out there feeling that we need data center because cloud isn't going to be good enough, there's a good chance that cloud is going to be good enough. So we're just going to look at that a little bit. This first item here, global scale, this is talking about user count. Okay. In cloud, the limit per instance was 20,000, and now you see the little bubble that's been added to the slide is because Atlassian recently increased that limit to 35,000. So within each cloud instance, you can have 35,000 users. Now, depending on your subscription tier, if you are at the highest tier, which is the enterprise subscription tier, you can have unlimited instances in the cloud. So you could have more than one or two or three, as many as you wanted of 35,000. Honestly, I have not yet encountered a customer that has had more than 35,000 users. So that's probably not a factor for most of you. If you're a company out there and you happen to have more than 35,000 users that you need to have in one instance, then this pretty much makes the decision for you. You would have to go with data center. These next three differences, reliability, security and compliance, and governance controls, I want to speak about as a group here, because what's similar among all of these is that the difference between cloud and how you would implement it on data center and how it affects you has a large, is in large part affected by how you manage and implement that. So some companies are in a place and have the resources to manage and implement these things really well. Some companies don't have the, perhaps the budget or the resources or the personnel for that. Regarding reliability, cloud, what Atlassian provides in cloud with this, this 99.9 service level agreement, the guaranteed uptime, it is very likely in most cases going to meet and exceed what you would manage in terms of uptime if you were managing your own instance. Regarding security, again, unless you have, Atlassian is probably going to meet and exceed what you would accomplish yourself as well, unless you have a lot of highly paid, you're very sophisticated and you have a very, highly paid security team that can really be on top of that. Most companies don't have that. So the security provided by cloud is good for them. Governance, Atlassian does provide sort of a minimum level of governance in cloud, but really you need to also implement your own governance over the top of that. You can have sort of a wild, wild west environment in data center or cloud, which isn't going to serve you well in the long term. But there's more, basically there's more governance in cloud than there is in data center. Apps and extensibility. There definitely are a lot more apps available for cloud. Atlassian and all the third-party vendors out there that create apps for Jira and Confluence, the focus and the priority is toward the cloud product. That's not to say that there aren't companies making those for data center. It's just there's a lot more attention going to the cloud. Also, in terms of extensibility and integrating with other web applications, it's easier to do that from the cloud just simply because you're in the cloud. So those are some differences that might affect your decision, but cloud should meet your needs, basically, is what we're getting at here. Okay, let's review subscription levels in the cloud. When you go to cloud, you're going to have to decide what subscription level you are going to subscribe to. And in terms of subscriptions, there are two primary things that we're looking at here. First, we're looking at your subscription level, whether it's free, standard, premium, or enterprise. And so there's that, and then there's also Atlassian Access. These are the two main players on this slide here. Before I dive into this, I just want to make the point that what we see most of our clients and customers do, the vast majority of companies that use these products have the premium subscription and they subscribe to Atlassian Access. It's just, I don't want to say almost everybody, but it's like pretty much that's what we see. The companies that are using standard are, sort of in more edge case, and enterprise is an edge case as well. So let's talk about, in terms of the subscription level, let's talk about what the differences are, what would affect your decision, why a lot of companies choose to go with premium over standard. Basically, premium, for one thing, premium has a lot of features that standard does not have. And these are features that you cannot add to standard by means of subscription. So for example, advanced roadmaps. Advanced roadmaps is a feature that a lot of companies want, and it's a deal breaker. They have to have it. So that makes the decision for them. They're at premium. Also, a sandbox. A sandbox in Jira in the cloud is basically a backup copy of your entire instance, and you can use it for whatever you want to use it for. You can use it as a backup. You can use it as a test environment. You can use it as a development environment. If you don't have a sandbox, then in cloud, basically you just have that one instance. You don't have any other kind of scratch space or place where you can test things out. For most companies, that's untenable. So that's another one that makes a lot of companies say, okay, we have to have premium. They really want to have that sandbox. Global automation is another one that makes premium attractive. If you work with automation for Jira, very cool tool, great product. It's just more limited in standard. In premium, you can create automations that are of a global scope that can operate across projects. In standard, you can't do that. In standard, your automations are limited to the scope of within the project that those automations are created. So yeah, Premium is good for most customers. The situations where you need to get into enterprise is when there's just some sort of capacity issue that makes enterprise more appealing. Another thing to be aware of, though, in terms of Atlassian Access is included when you get to the enterprise tier. So when you get the enterprise tier, with these other tiers, standard or premium, if you want to use Atlassian Access, which most companies do, you pay a different, separate, additional subscription fee for that. In the case of enterprise tier costs more, but you don't have to have that additional subscription fee there. And in case that wasn't clear, and I maybe should have mentioned this earlier, Access is the product that you use for your user provisioning, single sign-on, if you want to do single sign-on, auditing your organization in the cloud, but user provisioning also in terms of groups, like if you're syncing groups from Active Directory and you want to automatically give users access to certain products that way. Also on Atlassian Access, the more users, some companies try to get by without it. If you have a small user count and the number of users that you have are small enough such that your administrators can handle manually just administering those and making those changes, then you can get by without it. The more users you have, the more having access makes sense for you. So the more users you have, the more that's going to be good for you. All right. For fun, next, let's quickly just look at a survey real quick. This company, Tech Validate, took a survey of Atlassian customers and said, hey, what are your benefits of the cloud? So this is just kind of interesting. These are in order of rank. So first, peace of mind around maintaining security and version upgrades, which is understandable because in cloud, you don't even have to mess with that anymore. If you're doing server or data center, it's up to you. Improve speed and accessibility. With cloud, you have a product that is built from the ground up. It's optimized to be performant over the internet. If you're using server or data center and you're working remotely and you're connecting through a VPN or whatever, data center is not built from the ground up to be performant over the internet. So, and server isn't either. So if you're working remotely and you go to the cloud, you will see a performance increase. Improved employee satisfaction for whatever reasons, they don't really say. Improved performance, like what I just said. Reduced total cost of ownership, which is true. We'll talk about that here soon. Improved security. Yes, there are less attack vectors there. And these other ones, just sort of interesting. They don't really say why the people felt this, but felt that teams could focus on their goals better and better third-party apps and integrations, which is true, is definitely the case. All right, next we're going to talk about the cost of ownership, because when you're migrating to cloud, you're on server, you're migrating to cloud, and you're trying to make that decision, naturally costs are something you're going to want to look at and analyze. This graph shows that the server licensing and the costs for administration in cloud are more than what you would pay on-prem and for server, but the total cost of ownership is significantly less in the cloud, because when you do on-premise server or data center, you've got a lot more things involved that you have to pay for. You have to pay for personnel, you have to pay for hardware, you have to pay for the data center, electric, and all of that stuff. All of that goes away when you're in the cloud. All right. Next, we're going to talk about just some adjustments and challenges that you'll encounter when you go to cloud, assuming you're going to cloud, which most companies are. I'm going to sort of selectively go over these. User and group management. User management in cloud, it's just different. It's not a situation where, you know, you're used to managing users the way you do in server, and going to cloud isn't a case where you go to server and the UI is exactly the same and you're just doing exactly the same thing. The UI around and the method and even the structure of users and groups in cloud is different. So that's going to be something that, you know, your administrators are going to have to get up to speed on. It's just a change to be aware of. User interface differences. So the UI, it's not, you know, cloud is not a radical departure from server. If I was looking over someone's shoulder and they were using server or cloud, at a glance, I would be hard pressed to know which one they were using. But there are UI improvements in cloud, and you know, everything is mostly in the same place, but it's just not quite the same. To this point, one thing that we find that we're doing more because we're having more customers request this, is we do specific training around the UI differences in cloud. That's something we're doing more and more of that. That training can make it easier, can make that transition less bumpy. You don't necessarily have to do that. Your users might spend a week or two, clicking around and just trying to figure out exactly how stuff works. Everything is basically in the same place, but the implementation in the UI is just a little bit different. So it's definitely worth having that training, which we can do for you, and I'll talk about that soon here. Jira work management projects. This is new in the cloud. In server, you're used to Jira Core. In cloud, Jira Core has been retooled and upgraded into a better product. It's called Jira Work Management. So they're corresponding projects. It's just that Jira Work Management projects have a lot more features than what Jira Core does. And I'll just do a quick example to show you what I'm talking about. This is an example of a work management project, and this is a UI difference, how these options here are across the top. They used to be down here on the left side. But so for example, work management projects have this board. This is similar to what's in software projects. It's not a Kanban board. It's not a Scrum board. It's just a basic task management board. But a task board can be great for other teams, non-IT teams, to organize their work and just move things across the board to get that done. A list view, this is very much sort of like an Excel spreadsheet view. A lot of people just like this. You can change things in line, which is really nice. A lot of people like that. There's a calendar view where you can look at your work relative to your calendar. Timeline, this is similar to the road mapping tool in software projects. You can do forms. And anyway, so that's just some of the differences. Another thing about Jira work management projects is Atlassian provides a lot of templates. And you might say, oh, templates, every software product has a bunch of templates and they're basically junk. That's not the case here, because Atlassian has actually put a lot of research into making these templates very, very focused, and the setup that a template provides for you being exactly what you need for a particular business or situation. So a lot of times when you take a Jira work management project and you apply one of Atlassian's templates, it's sort of like having a new application that's turnkey out of the box, just ready to go for you. That's the goal. That's what Atlassian is trying to accomplish there. Okie dokie. One last thing in terms of things to an adjustment going to cloud. In cloud, there are team managed projects. This doesn't necessarily affect your actual migration, but it's something you address in your migration. Team managed projects is a new feature in cloud, which I'm going to explain here in about 5 seconds. But the key point here with team managed projects is before you migrate to cloud, you're very likely going to want to disable this feature and turn it off. It comes on by default. We recommend that customers turn it off. What team managed projects are is it's a feature in cloud where your employees, if they just need a workspace ad hoc, they need to be able to spin up a workspace to do some work around a particular task or project or a group of people, they can spin it up and just start working in a project without having to reach out to your Jira admins or what, your other process. The thing is, team managed projects, they are team managed and they cannot be managed by your administrators, your Jira administrators. That's not a bad thing. I mean, it's sort of a self-service enabling kind of feature, but what happens over and over and over again is companies run into the situation where some employees created a team managed project or projects, and then all of a sudden there's mission critical or work in there that's mission critical to the company that needs to be managed by the organization. So then that needs to be migrated into a company managed project. Now, the problem with that is, the nuisance with that basically is it's work that you have to do that you would rather not have to do, if you could have avoided it. But also when Atlassian built team management projects from the ground up, they're different enough that they're different, and they weren't designed from the ground up to be able to migrate directly from team managed to company managed. So has been really difficult. We've done some of that. We've got some of that going on now. As time goes on, Atlassian is making that a little easier, the migration process from team to company managed, but it's basically something that you don't want to have to mess with right after you migrate to the cloud. After you migrate to the cloud, you're going to be concerned with, being stable and moving on. You don't need some extra variable thrown into your process and your life that you didn't anticipate. So we recommend that you turn that off, and then you can turn it on later when you decide that that's something that your company wants to use, and you introduce it to your employees as such, and perhaps provide some training around that. Okay. Regarding how long your migration is going to take, you're doing your research, you're planning your migration, you want to know how long it's going to take. Everybody wants to. Basically, what we see is that these migrations can range typically anywhere from 2 months to 12 months. 12 months is long. It's not something that we see real often, and getting a migration done in 2 months is pretty rare too. But that just sort of gives you an idea of the timeline. What is going to affect the length of time that it takes for you is the number of these various items here that you have implemented in your instance, the number of users. The more users you have, that's going to lend to the complexity. The more add-ons you have, that's definitely going to lend to the complexity. Fewer add-ons, fewer to no add-ons, that makes your migration easier. Some add-ons migrate easily to the cloud, well, some don't. Automation and scripting has to be, it doesn't migrate by use of Atlassian's migration tool. So automations are things that you have to recreate in cloud after you go there. So if you have exhaustive amounts of automation in your server instance, it's going to be a lot of work for you. So that adds to the length of time. Third-party integrations. It's just all of those things. The more of each of those things you have in your server instance is going to impact your timeline and make it longer. So you're probably looking, 2 to 12 months. Average migrations tend to be more in the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 month ranges. We see a lot of that really commonly. Okay. take a brief break here just to talk about Expium. Expium is the company I work for and who is hosting this webinar today. Expium, like I mentioned before, is a Atlassian Platinum partner. And Expium has grown to the point now, it's really nice because we have groups of people that work around these various different areas of practice. One of the key things that we have is training. Expium has almost any kind of training you would want. And what I mean by that is, we do in-person training, we do webinar training, we have free training, we have paid training, we have paid training on a variety of different topics. Some of the training is just open for people to pay for and join. Often we do custom training specifically for a client. So if we're working with a customer in any kind of agreement, we can set up some classes just for them and tailor that to them. In terms of consulting, this is where we really have these different areas of practice. Naturally, we've got people that work around migrations, myself being one of them. If you need help with migration, feel free to reach out to Expium. If you want to just have a contract to evaluate your migration, we do that as well. Another area of consulting that we do is around ITSM. So if you're doing a lot of Jira Service Management and Service Desk portals in ITSM, we have people that work specifically around that. Additionally, we consult around just general support agreements. If you just need help with anything of any kind of scope that is anything Atlassian, we do that. And it's kind of, sometimes we call it a phone a friend. You just have a consistent relationship with us. You can reach out to us for help. Another really cool area of practice that we have is around scaled agile. So we have people that work specifically with Scale Agile and Jira Align. If you're doing any of that, we have people that can help you with that. Also, licensing. This is something that's actually provided free. If you need help with licensing, when you're going to the cloud, Atlassian tries to make it be as easy as possible, but it can still be a little bit of a wrestling match as you're trying to work that out. So it's nice to have somebody to help you. We have people here specifically that work specifically with licensing. If you have any questions about licensing, feel free to give us a call. We can get you in touch with those people. And like I said, it's a no charge service. We can handle your licensing for you, and oftentimes as a Platinum partner, we can even get you a little bit of a discount. Atlassian allows us to provide a discount that way. So working with us through licensing, there's that benefit of a little bit of a discount. Plus, you have the benefit of an ongoing relationship with an Atlassian partner where you have a question about something, you can pick up the phone and ask, you can reach out. Also, we do custom development. We have an area of the company where we have a lot of engineers and developers, so we can do custom development if need be. All right. Enough of that, of the public service announcement break. Let's jump back in. We'll talk about some more of the planning here. User management. Something to be aware of when you migrate to cloud. User management is different in the cloud. It's another one of those situations where the way that you manage users in server it's not just simply transplanted out into the cloud, and it's the same way. It's different. There's a learning curve there. In terms of your migration, though, a point to be made is, you need to manage your users around just getting the migration process done. In the cloud, the primary key for users in the cloud is email address. Everybody logs into Jira products with an email address. Therefore, each user that you migrate to the cloud has to have a unique email address. It's most common that companies using server, they don't have that across the board, across all their users. They'll have some users that don't have an email address. They'll have some users that are sharing an email address. They'll have a user here and there that have more than one email address. Those things all have to be resolved before you migrate to the cloud. And they absolutely have to be. It's a requirement, because as you're using the Atlassian migration tool that gets you to the cloud, that is one check that it does at the beginning of the process. If the users aren't in order, it doesn't let the migration continue. So that is one of the biggest steps, and we do spend a lot of time helping customers with that. Let's see, in terms of management, there's automated user provisioning if you want to do that with Active Directory. That can be configured in single sign-on. So anyway, there's definitely some differences around users there to be tackled when you go to cloud. Let's talk about actually doing your migration. Your migration is a big project, obviously, and we talked about how it can run over a period of several months. There's a lot of details. You need to have a way to track all of it. What we do in the agreements or the engagements that we have with customers where we're doing that for them, we use the Atlassian products. We use Jira and Confluence to track the work and use it as a tool to have transparency between us and our customer. And it just enables us to work as a team with the customer. If you're doing a migration without an Atlassian partner and you're trying to do it just on your own, you still need to do something like this. So that's something that we recommend. Real quickly before I move off of this slide, part of planning here, as you do your migration, you need to decide what strategy you are going to use as you move your data to the cloud. There's more than one way to do it. One way is to optimize and shift, meaning you can take advantage of the time that you're migrating and clean up your data on server before you migrate to cloud. A lot of times that can help your migration go more smoothly or go quicker. So a lot of companies appreciate the opportunity to just say, let's just not have to deal with, this is our opportunity to get rid of all that old stuff. You can do that. By contrast, another approach is to don't clean up, and we just call that lift and shift, where you just say, we're not going to clean anything up, just move everything wholesale, boom. That's an approach you can take. Also, there's a phased approach where you can go project by project. If your company is large and you have a lot of projects and your teams work together such that they don't necessarily all have to be on the same platform at the same time, you can do this project by project migration, and it can span over a period of time. A lot of companies like the flexibility that affords them. It's also just good for companies that are just really large and have a lot of teams. We've seen some of our larger customers do that. Another option, and this is the fourth and final option, is start fresh. And that means basically don't migrate data, build out your new instance in the cloud. And this depends on your teams and the nature of their work and if they can handle this. And then you would have your teams just start doing new work in their corresponding project in the cloud and wrap up their work in their server project, finish that up to where they're, over a brief period of time, there is no more work in their server project and all their work is in their cloud project. We don't really see a lot of that, but that's something you can do. So again, optimize and shift, lift and shift, phased approach, start fresh. That's something you're gonna have to decide. Also, you're gonna have to decide what's the best tool to use. Atlassian provides a couple of tools. There's Jira Cloud Migration Assistant, Confluence Cloud Migration Assistant. In terms of Jira, if you're big enough, you can still use site import. That's something that Atlassian is trying to phase out, though. And the reason you would decide between those two is what data and information and artifacts that each tool brings over can vary a little bit. So if the difference there matters to you and you're a large enough company where you have over 1,000 users, site import can be an option for you that you would want to evaluate. For the most part, you're going to be using the migration assistance though. So that's going to be the last and final part of your planning is determining that strategy and also determining what method and what tool you're going to use. That's something that we can help you out with if you want help with your migration. Please feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to help you with that. All right. Preparation. And we're almost finished because these last phases are shorter, if you recall, and we'll do Q&A and we'll be giving away these AirPods very soon. Okay, preparation. There are some cases where you may need to do some things to your server just to get your server ready. You may need to upgrade the version of your server if you're behind on versions. You may need to do that to get it to a version that works best with the migration assistant tool. It also can likely be helpful for if some of your apps are behind to upgrade them. It's basically better for you to have everything on the latest version as much as you can. You can also, server prep, you can also take some time to clean things up if you want to do some cleanup. In terms of another thing that you do to prepare, you create a pre-migration checklist. We do this with all of our customers. It's a long itemized checklist of things that you have to make sure that you absolutely have to have done before you do your migration. That can be valuable if you're doing your migration, you're doing your test migrations in one environment, and then you're going to do your primary migration from a prod environment. It can vary, but you just want to make sure that you have those steps documented. That's another thing that you need to do. And that's, also preparing for the migration is communication. You need to start socializing your migration within your company, start letting people know, letting them know that it's coming, letting them know when it's coming. Communicate some of the benefits so you can build some anticipation. Here at XPM, we have a lot of boilerplate communication emails and things that you can use. And that's really nice for a lot of companies. You can see what we have in our experience has determined to be really good and helpful, and you don't have to spend time just trying to compose all of that stuff. Okay, creating a run book and timeline. To prepare for your migration, and this is when you do the actual migration, you need to create a run book of the steps that you perform as you actually migrate your data from server to cloud. And you test that run book. You'll do a test migration. We'll talk about that soon. You test it at least once, probably more than once. And as you do that, you get an idea of how much time each step takes, which those are all different for everybody. So that allows you to plan when you do your real migration around a time of the week, weekend, evening, during the day, whenever that the time factor actually works into an actual round-the-clock calendar. So that's very valuable to do that. You need to do both of those. Create a run book and establish your timeline. Testing your migration process. This is something that you have to do. Like I said, you'll do it once, probably more than once. You're going to test your migration process first. That first time you're going to encounter some things that you need to fix and tweak. And so you'll do that, resolve those issues, update your run book accordingly, and then you'll repeat that test until the process is stable and predictable. Like the slide here says, you want to have a stable and predictable migration process. So you want to get your test migration to the point to where you feel that it is representing exactly what you are going to do and what you are going to encounter when you migrate your production instance to the cloud. This next step here, that's a part of the testing. As you're doing that testing, those test migrations, you do user acceptance testing as an immediate follow-up step of that, for that. Um, Select a key UAT group from managers, stakeholders and users within your company to look at the test migrated instance, the cloud migrated instance, and just look it over and make sure that everything is okay. We can help you with providing a list if sometimes customers say, what should we check? We can provide you with a list of that. Feel free to reach out to us for that. Okay, so after you've done all that, your step is to do the actual migration. So with the inputs of the analysis that we were talking about in terms of timeline, you pick the time and the date, you create a move ticket. Atlassian has something called a move ticket that corresponds to your migration. And basically that's how you engage Atlassian support. Atlassian wants to be aware of your migration and when you're doing it, and they will, they just want to keep tabs on it and provide whatever it is they need to provide to make sure that the migration is successful. Also, you need to, this probably goes without saying, but you really need to freeze any kind of updates to your server right before your migration. So be aware of that. Configuration changes. So yeah, that's that. The communication, execute the runbook, pick the time and just do it. After you have done that, you're launching the cloud product to your users in your company. This happens right at the tail end of your actual migration process. After you do that, you're going to make a go, no-go decision. Did the migration happen the way that we wanted it to, expected it to, the way that we need it to in order to move forward with using this cloud version of our instance or not? Vast majority of cases, it's a go decision. Very, very rare, few and far between have we ever seen a situation where you can't, where a company had to do a no-go instead of a go. If you have a no-go, but you also have a rollback plan, and since this is the nature of the migration is to cloud, often the rollback plan is just simply to re-enable the access to prod and just continue on with prod. After you have done the launch, take some time to reflect and celebrate. It's a huge project. It's a huge amount of work. You've got it done. Celebrate to reward yourself. Do something with your team, whether it's going out somewhere, ordering in some pizza or having a happy hour or something. Be sure to pat yourself on the back for getting that done. Okay. The next slide is Q&A. I will look and see. Do we have any questions? I don't think we do. And that's understandable because with this webinar, there's just a lot of information to take in, and we're really flying over it really fast. Feel free to reach out to us after the fact with questions. My email address is david.mitchell@xbeam.com. Feel free to send me an email. Feel free to call our number and talk to our project coordinators. Okay. So this is our last slide, and then I'm going to get into giving away these AirPods. So thank you for attending. The resource library is being posted to chat for you to grab. We're going to, like I said, we're going to leave the webinar up long enough for you to have the chance to grab that. You can follow the link in that to look at our training opportunities, or if it's, I don't remember if it's actually on there, but anyway, you can go to XBM website and look at all of our training. One thing to also be aware of is we have an XPM migration um, event. It's a 4-hour event, training event coming up on February 2nd. If you want to go more in depth, you can look into joining us for that. Let's see. My email is listed here on the screen. Feel free to email me if you have any questions. From all of us here at XPM, thank you for being with us. Now we're going to give away the AirPods Pro. My producer here in the control room is going to tell me who it is. Oh, wait. She's saying we had 2 questions. All right, let's talk about those questions. Everybody's saying, man, I want those AirPods. I am not seeing those questions. Elizabeth, can you paste those to me? Okay. What extent of script runner automations / scripts get migrated through the assistant? Fields, workflows, behaviors, etc. Okay, script runner specifically, none of them, script runner does not get migrated as just a turnkey pass through from server to cloud. There's a little bit of difference in the functionality of this cloud script runner cloud version versus server, and the scripting language that is used changes from server to cloud. So that's something that we routinely deal with because we do a lot of migrations and a lot of companies have script runner. So there's just a manual step that would be a part of your runbook to fix those. You know, we take an inventory of those and we figure out how we're going to fix them, and we do that in the testing to make sure, and then we do that with in your production migration. So unfortunately, yeah, the migration, Atlassian's migration tool doesn't just move script runner over. What the migration tool does, though, it does continue to get better over time. Let's see. Also on script runner, real quick, somebody mentioned behaviors. There's a small hand. Well, let's see. Behaviors were not implemented in cloud, but they're adding that. The company that makes script runner is adding that. I've seen that announcement about a month and a half ago. Next question: does the cloud migration tool work for boards that have filters with multiple projects? It does not. At this time, it does not migrate boards. Again, the migration tool is always getting a little bit better over time. So that could get better, but right now, no, you have to reconfigure your boards. Next and last question, and we'll give away these AirPods. Will the add-ons compatible in the cloud that we have on server be migrated using the tool, or do we need to install them manually in the cloud? Okay, the Cloud Migration Assistant, what it does for you is really cool. And you can go into this today, go into your system and go to the Migration Assistant, and it runs a pre-check for you. It will do sort of a preliminary audit of all of your add-ons and will tell you one by one what the status of it is, whether it does go smoothly, whether it doesn't at all, or if it's sort of a halfway and you have to kind of tweak it after you get there. Additionally, on that point, so it's really just a case by cases on those add-ons. In terms of installing, though, you would install them in the cloud, actually install them manually in the cloud beforehand. The migration process does not install them for you. Let's see, there was something else I was going to say on that. When we help our customers, we do a more extensive app assessment on each of your apps beyond what the migration tool does. So that's a part of our process if you work with us. All right, I think that's the last of the questions. Okay, so we're going to give away these AirPods. My producer here is letting me know who it is. Congratulations, Mary Trier. You're the winner of the Apple AirPods Pro today. Send your mailing, so send your mailing address to elizabeth.wheeler@xpm.com so we can get your prize shipped to you. That's Elizabeth, the way it's normally spelled, period, Wheeler, WHEELER, @xpm.com. So congratulations, Mary. We'll get these to you. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. That wraps up the webinar today. Thank you and have an excellent day.